Coming this fall from SJS Direct, Easting the Sands of Time. It's action, adventure, and romance in ancient Egypt in this fantasy flashback Easting series adventure. Pre-order Easting the Sands of Time today on Amazon.com. Recently, publisher Peter Simetti, who runs Alterna Comics, ran into a lot of heat from many on the far left and comic book writer Mark Waid when he decided to implement a social media policy for his business, Alterna Comics. As a publisher myself, I've been where your Peter Simetti is right now, and I want to try to give Peter some advice on how to deal with this situation. The first thing you need to understand, Peter, is this. You created Alterna Comics, and you created the mission for Alterna Comics. As your business, this is your property, and as your business, you have to understand what it means to you. Now, when it comes down to your business, you are the one running Alterna Comics, not Mark Waid, not these far leftists, not these social justice warriors. If people want to publish on your platform, they have to meet your standards and your guidelines. And you are perfectly right in trying to implement a social media policy, because if your creators are creating product under your imprint, those creators have to meet your standard, because these creators are representing your imprint when they go out here and write and publish comics, and you have every right as a publisher to ask them to follow the social media policy in exchange for having their comics published at your imprint. Because when these people go on social media who are creating comics for you, they represent your company, they represent the image of your company, and they represent the reflection of how people will see your company. So you have every right to implement a social media policy regarding how employees of your company act and how independent contractors who work with your company act. That's your right as a business owner, and it shows that you are a strong leader because you are running Alterna Comics and you are not letting people like Mark Waid run you. And you have to stand firm for your imprint, because when it comes down to your imprint, you have to understand what's at stake here. Because as the publisher, again, you set the mission for Alterna Comics, you set the direction for Alterna Comics, you set the tone for Alterna Comics. And if those people who want to publish with you want to publish on the Alterna imprint, they have to meet your standards and your guidelines. Otherwise, they can just go someplace else, because you're the one footing the money for the printing and distribution, and that's a big risk. So you're taking on a lot of these costs, and you as a business owner have a right to demand certain standards as related to conduct and content from your people who work on your imprint. And that's something that I established for my SJS Direct imprint. And if I wanted to bring in other writers and other artists, I would ask them to be just as professional as well, because when they are on social media and they're out here, they're not just representing themselves, they're also representing the companies that they work with. And I've worked with artists like Bill Walko and Mike Williams, and they have been extremely professional on social media. And the reason why they've been extremely professional on social media is because they understand that they not only represent themselves, but they also are looking for other opportunities to get more work. Because when it comes down to one single image on a book, like an ISIS series book, this image on a book not only represents my SJS Direct imprint and the stories I'm telling, it also allows artists like Bill Walko to get other opportunities at commissions or contract work for other publishers. And when publishers see their work on one of my covers, what it does is it's a business card for them. So the whole idea of a creator acting out, it hurts not only their business, but it also hurts your business as well. And again, you have a right to implement a social media policy to make sure that their behavior does not reflect badly on those books that you have in your catalog, because all of those books, their sales are impacted by certain behaviors. Like if someone were to act the way recently, like Robbie Reyes did, it could literally prevent that book from getting any sales. So you have that right to implement that social media policy. And if these people are so upset about it, then that's their problem, because those people are not on your payroll, and you as a publisher have to again stand firm. That's something I've done with this SJS Direct imprint over the last decade, is I've stood firm in the face of heat, because I understand that I am not just standing up for myself, I'm also standing up for my company, and I'm letting people know that I run SJS Direct. SJS Direct is not run by my detractors, nor is it run by my critics. It is run by me. So I'm establishing leadership from minute one. Now, as it relates to the harassment from people like Mark Wade, you really have to stand firm again, because it is you who runs the publishing imprint. Mark Wade may be a very popular comic book writer, but when I look at his recent behaviors, he exemplifies none of the heroic actions I saw in his 1990s Flash run, in classic stories like Return of Barry Allen, nor does he exemplify any of the heroism of characters like Shazam and Superman in the award-winning Kingdom Come. No, your Mark Wade recently, in his recent behaviors, has been extremely immature, and he's been completely out of control, and he needs to be hard checked by a publisher. He is not on your payroll, so you don't have to listen to him, because this is the critical mistake that the publishers of Antarctic Press made as related to Mark Wade, because the guy got caught up in his emotions regarding the social media harassment from these far leftists and Mark Wade. Now, as it relates to social media, again, you have to take it with a grain of salt, because a lot of these people who are on social media, they will make a lot of noise, but these people, that by their actions, are not going to go out here and buy Alterna comics or SJS Direct books. In most cases, when it comes down to a lot of these people who are on social media, these people who are making all these complaints, a lot of the time, these are people who are, in some cases, scavenging comics on pirated websites for free, or they're going to places like, for my books, they used to go to Smashwords when I would offer them for free, or Kindle on the free days I would have books enrolled in KDP Select. And these people, they would sit there and they would complain about things like book covers. Like in my case, they would sit there and talk about how some book covers are lousy and terrible, not understanding I was just starting out back in 2009 to about 2013, and I was running things on a shoestring, and I was trying to draw my own covers because I didn't have that much money, because I had been fired back in 2008, and I was just trying to build my imprint, and I was just starting out. So a lot of these people, like these feminists, they did not like the message I put in books like the ISIS series. I did a book called The Beauty Myth, which was partially inspired by Naomi Wolf's book, The Beauty Myth, and a lot of these feminists got mad about The Beauty Myth, and they decided to go out here and put my book on the cover of a lousy book covers list or website, and they didn't like the narrative and the temptation of John Haynes, so they put that book on the cover of a lousy book covers website. And I just, instead of me reacting to these people, I oftentimes ignored them. And when I ran into some of these hoteps and pro-blacks who got upset regarding the ISIS character, and they decided to talk about my work on a message board because I wrote a blog saying that comics don't grow up with you, they got mad. And instead of me getting upset at these people, I knew how to navigate through my emotions and focus on maintaining my professionalism. And instead of getting into it with these people, I focused on improving the quality of my product. And instead of me getting mad at these people, I decided to seek out other comic professionals like Bill Walko to design covers for books like Isis, Wrath of the Cyber Goddess. I sacrificed a lot of pieces in my personal toy collection and many parts of my memorabilia collection to pay for that first cover. But even then, after making that cover, I ran into people who then decided they wanted to go into the light-skinned, dark-skinned strongman argument, because after I did the Isis Wrath of the Cyber Goddess cover, I don't have it behind me, what happened is that you had people who were saying these characters weren't black, and that they weren't black because they weren't the skin tone they wanted them to be. And again, I had to brush that off and just keep going. And that's something you're going to have to do as related to these far leftists or people like Mark Wade, is brush them off, ignore them, because oftentimes these people, they think they're going to make a lot of noise, and they know that the emotional response from a business owner is to run out and cater to them in the hopes of trying to please them. And that's something you just can't do, because when it comes down to many of these far leftists and social justice warriors, they're not interested in buying anything. They're like they said in my neighborhood, the guy who comes into the store, he walks around, he looks at stuff, but he's not interested in buying anything, but he wants to come and then talk to you all day, but he doesn't really want to buy anything. So that's what these people are like. They don't really want to buy anything, and they want to get in your way and prevent you from making sales. They want you to please them, but then they're not interested in buying your product. So they aren't a part of your core audience. And I began to figure that out after Wrath of the Cyber Goddess and a campaign I did for a Kickstarter for Isis, Night of the Vampires. I did a Kickstarter for this book, and as I was trying to do the Kickstarter, again, had the pro-blacks coming at me saying the character wasn't black. And this is the argument, again, they use because it doesn't fit the black of their narrative, and it doesn't fit the black of their politics. So what they want to do is be able to try to shame me into following their narrative, following their politics, and I wasn't going for it. And I managed to get the Kickstarter funded in spite of these people, with the help of a brother in the community. And a lot of people saw how positive I was in doing things, and I got a donation, and that helped me to publish the next book in the Isis series, Samurai Goddess. And again, as long as you stand firm, there will be people out here to support you. And a lot of comic fans, they have come out to support you. They've come out to stand up for you because they understand what's at stake here, because they saw what happened with Antarctic Press, and they saw what happened with Richard C. Myers' Jawbreakers Lost Souls, and they saw that with these bullies, what they did was they prevented that book from coming to the marketplace, and that's not what should be done to a publisher. Publishers, they stand firm, because we represent the First Amendment. We represent freedom of the press. And when you have people like Mark Wade out here trying to bully and control the press, that's a violation of our United States Constitution and what it stands for, because that First Amendment is a very important amendment, and as a publisher, it's something you have to stand for. And as a publisher, I stand for the First Amendment, and I stand for freedom of speech, I stand for freedom of expression, I stand for freedom of the press, and I'm not going to buckle in the face of far leftists, because I understand how important our Constitution is, and how what's great about it is that I can go out here and write and publish books that many people, like your feminists and your pro-blacks, may disagree with, but they have a right to a place in a marketplace, and they have a right to a place in a marketplace because they are protected by free speech. And what Mark Wade and many of these far leftists want to do is they want to control your Alterna comics, and they want to control your press and have them all following lockstep in the same narrative as Marvel Comics and IDW, where they're pushing identity politics. And again, that goes back to leadership. Who's running Alterna Comics? You have to say to yourself, you are running Alterna Comics, and it's got to run by your standard, not by Mark Waid's standard, not by far leftist standards, not by social justice warrior standards, but by your standard. Because that's what I do with the SJS Direct imprint every day, in the face of hostile criticism from people like feminists, like people like pro-blacks and hoteps, and even trolls out there which have tried to stalk me on my blog. And I've had to deal with even black women who had made threats that they would never buy my books, all because they read something on a blog they didn't like, or a commentary I made in a video that they didn't like. And instead of me trying to argue to win this person over, instead I just charge that person to the game, let them go on their way, let them have their opinion, and I did not react to their emotional response. I responded by just moving on, because I understood that my customers would still remain with me, and they would stay with me because they believe in the products I'm producing, they believe in the stories I'm telling, and they're going to support me and my mission. I've had people go out here and, even in the face of all of those threats, still continue to support me and still continue to support me in building the SJS Direct imprint. Again, even though I've written critical blogs of black women, I had a black woman who donated most of the money for me to pay for the cover of Isis Samurai Goddess. So I've had a lot of support from black people. Even though I have been very critical of black people, those who supported me will continue to support me. And those comic fans who love great comics, they are going to continue to support you. You just have to stay in the game, and you have to stay strong, because this is a rough game. When it comes down to publishing, it is a marathon, not a sprint. And as a marathon runner in the publishing game for over 10 years, and someone who has tried to write with other professional publishers even before then, I know this is a long haul business. And when it comes down to bumps in the road, like a Mark Waid or many of these far leftists, you can't let them trip you up, you can't let them make you stumble, and you can't let them make you fall. Your business is going to pick up, things are going to get better, but you have to hang in there and you have to persevere. That's what I had to do during the early days of SJS Direct, and that's what I'm doing right now with SJS Direct. I'm out here and I want to create those positive stories about African Americans and African American experience, diverse stories about African Americans and the African American experience. And I'm finding support all over from people like those in the Black Goth subculture, Black fantasy fans, Black sci-fi fans, brothers and sisters in the community, and even white people and people in foreign countries like the UK, Canada, France, Germany, Japan, and all over the world. And you have to embrace those people who want to support your product and are buying your product on the regular, and ignore these far leftists who haven't bought a single comic and can't tell you what's wrong in a single comic because they haven't bought a single comic. They usually, if they did read it, they got it off a pirated website, and they didn't really go to that pirated website to get your comics to enjoy them. They got them looking for something to complain about, and they're looking to make themselves out to be a victim, and they're hoping by using the victim position they can pander some crumbs in the form of a comic job or an art job or a writing job, but they're not really interested in comics. They have no passion for comics. And as a comic fan who has been in the comic since he was 4 years old back in the late 70s, again, I can tell you I've been around for years, and I love comics, and I just want to see your publishing imprint succeed. And that's why I'm going to give you this advice, because again, I've walked down your road on social media, I've walked down this dark path, and I've dealt with people like this over the years, and I know how to deal with them. And as I overcame my struggles with these type of people, my business started to get better. I started to build an audience, and you can continue to build your audience as well. I've seen the way many comic fans have rallied behind you on social media, and it's a great thing because it shows how much people love comics and how they're willing to stand up for great comics. And when I look at Alterna Comics, it's a promising company, and it can be a great company, but you just have to hang in there. You have to be a strong leader, and you have to understand something I learned from Gordon Ramsay on Hell's Kitchen. You have to run the comic company, not let the comic company run you. So in running the comic company, you have to be the one who sets the terms. You have to be the one that sets the mission. And if you want a social media policy, then those people who want to work for you have to follow that social media policy. As a professional myself, when I'm on social media, I do my best to remain professional, and I do my best to make sure that I create a positive image of myself on social media, like I do in these videos, on my blogs, and in my Twitter and Facebook posts, where I'm mostly focusing on book promotion, and I'm focusing on giving people teasers of things like cover art or sample chapters, or something that will try to make them see what's great about my products, because that's what I want people to see, and that's what any good seasoned comic pro or professional wants people to see. They want people to see their work on the page, because it's their work on the page that is going to sell customers, and it's also their work on the page that's going to get them that next job in the business of the comic book industry, film and television, or screenwriting, or even getting them published in a print book. And when you look at the big picture of publishing and you're focused on the big picture of publishing, you don't have time to do things like go on rants about politics, because you're all about business and you're all about building your brand and building your business. And many comic pros out here, they need to be focused more on building their brand and building their business than they are on going out here and arguing about things like Donald Trump, the politics that's going on, because any good writer, they're not going to be focused on that. They're going to be focused on building their brand, building their business, building their image, and trying to reach a new generation of readers and make them fans of their product, just like I'm doing right now with the SJS Direct imprint. And that's what you need to do with Alterna Comics. Focus on building that next generation of fans and readers that will see Alterna Comics as great comics. If you'd like to try some of my SJS Direct publications like the ISIS series, the E-Steam series, the Temptation of John Haynes, the John Haynes series, the Spinsterella trilogy, and my men's issues books like the Simp series, you may do so by clicking the link to Amazon.com in the description box. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe.
Now available in paperback and Kindle Unlimited. ISIS, Escape from Transylvania. The goddess next door and John Haynes must escape a horde of vampires on the hunt in this horror-filled ISIS series adventure. Get ISIS, Escape from Transylvania in paperback and Kindle Unlimited today.